Jake Morrison stood inside the cargo bay of the shuttle. His hands were tied with chains that looked like they were for ceremonies, but they felt real enough. The metal was cold against his skin. Around him, other people from Earth whispered to each other. They all looked scared. The lights from the alien ship made everyone look pale and sick. They had been traveling through space for 3 weeks to reach this place, the Valdren homeworld. Now the moment had finally come. Jake tried to keep his breathing steady. He had been trained for this. He was a soldier before he became part of the diplomatic team. Ambassador Helen Carter stood near him. She wore formal robes and kept adjusting them with nervous fingers. She looked at Jake and spoke quietly, so only he could hear. Remember why we are doing this. Our whole planet depends on it. The Valdren Empire controls 47 star systems. They have enough ships to destroy Earth completely. We have to do what they want. Jake nodded but did not speak. His throat felt too dry to talk. He knew the story well. 5 years ago, the Valdren had found Earth. They gave humanity a simple choice: join their empire and do what they say, or die. Every 10 years, Earth had to send them things: resources, technology, and people to work in their court. Jake had not been chosen. His younger sister Kate had been picked in the lottery, but Jake volunteered to go instead of her. Kate had 2 children and a husband. She had a family that needed her. Jake was single. He could do this. He had to do this. The shuttle doors opened with a loud hissing sound. Beyond them was a huge room. The walls were made of something that looked like crystal, but was alive somehow. Light moved through the walls in waves of different colors. It made patterns on the floor that looked like rainbows. At the far end of the room was a throne. It seemed to float in the air. On the throne sat the Valdren Queen. She was enormous. At least 9 feet tall, maybe more. She had 4 arms folded across her chest. Her skin was strange. It moved and changed colors like oil on water. Purple and blue waves ran across her body. A crown made of crystal horns grew from her head. Her eyes glowed with an inner light that made Jake think of fire. Behind her stood rows of Valdren warriors. Their armor was covered with weapons. Jake knew those weapons could turn a human into ash in seconds. A voice came from a translator device. It echoed through the whole chamber. "Come forward." Ambassador Carter led their small group across the floor. Jake walked behind her. His heart was beating so hard he thought everyone could hear it. But he kept his face calm. He had faced enemy fire before. He knew how to hide his fear. They reached the bottom of the platform where the throne floated. Carter bowed low. Her voice was respectful, but Jake could hear the fear underneath. "Your Radiance, we bring you tribute from Earth, as we agreed. We bring resources and technology data, and we bring this man to serve in your household." The Queen looked at their group. Her glowing eyes moved over Carter and the others quickly. She barely seemed to see them. Then her eyes locked onto Jake. Everything changed. The Queen's forearms tensed. The light in her eyes got brighter and stronger. Around the room, the Valdren warriors shifted their weight. They could tell something was wrong. Their queen was reacting to something, and they did not know what it was. Slowly, the queen stood up from her throne. She came down from the floating platform. Each step she took made the crystal floor sing with a high note. She walked straight to Jake. The humans around him stepped back quickly. But Jake did not move. He stayed where he was and looked up at her. Even though she was huge and terrifying, he met her burning gaze. The queen leaned down. Her face came close to his. So close, he could feel heat coming off her skin. For a long moment, she just stared at him. Her expression was impossible to read. Then she spoke in perfect English. Her voice was so quiet that only Jake could hear the words. "Impossible. You are one of them." Jake felt his blood turn to ice. He had no idea what she meant, But the way she said it scared him more than anything else had. There was shock in her voice, and fear, and something else he could not name. Whatever she had seen when she looked at him, it had changed everything. The throne room exploded into noise and movement. The queen stepped back from Jake, like he had burned her. All the Valdren warriors raised their weapons at once. Ambassador Carter and the other humans from Earth started shouting questions. Everyone was talking at the same time. But then, the queen raised one of her 4 hands. Silence fell over the room like a hammer hitting metal. "Leave us." Her voice was a command that no one could argue with. "All of you." One of the warriors started to speak. "Your radiance, we cannot leave you alone with." The queen's eyes flashed with dangerous light. "I said leave." The Valdren warriors marched out of the room. They moved like soldiers, in perfect order. But Jake could see confusion on their alien faces. They did not understand what was happening. Ambassador Carter looked torn. She was responsible for Jake. She could not just leave him alone with the most powerful alien in 47 star systems. "Your radiance, we cannot abandon our tribute. If there is a problem with him, if something is wrong, there is no problem." The queen's tone said there was definitely a problem. "I want to talk to this human alone. You will wait outside." Carter opened her mouth to argue more. But Jake caught her eye and gave her a small nod. He was telling her it was okay. After a few seconds, she closed her mouth and led the other humans toward the doors. She kept looking back at Jake, with worry in her eyes. The massive doors closed with a deep boom. Jake was alone with the queen. The queen started walking in a circle around him. Her 4 arms moved as she walked. She looked like she was trying to solve a puzzle that made no sense. "What is your name, human?" "Jake Morrison, ma'am. Lieutenant in the Earth Defense Forces. Currently working with the Diplomatic Corps." "Morrison." She said his name slowly, testing how it sounded. "Tell me about your family, Jake Morrison. Your parents, your grandparents. Tell me everything you can remember about where you came from." Jake frowned. This was not what he expected at all. "My mother died when I was young. She had cancer. My father raised me and my sister in Colorado. He worked as a geologist for mining companies. His parents were farmers. They lived in the Midwest. My mother's family came from the East Coast. I do not know much more than that." "Why does any of this matter?" The queen stopped walking. She turned to face him directly. All 4 of her arms were still. "Because you should not exist. The bloodline should have died out thousands of years ago. We made certain that it did. I do not understand. No. You would not." The queen walked to her throne and sat down. For the first time, she looked tired. "Remove his chains." Systems in the walls activated. The chains around Jake's wrists opened and fell to the crystal floor with a clatter. Jake rubbed his wrists. The skin was red where the metal had been. He watched the queen carefully. He still did not understand what was happening, but he knew it was important. The queen began to speak again. Her voice was different now, quieter, almost sad. The queen sat on her throne and looked at Jake with those glowing eyes. When she spoke, her voice sounded old and tired. 60,000 years ago, the Valdren Empire was young. We only controlled 3 star systems. We thought we were alone in space. Then we met another species. They called themselves the Architects. They were builders, creators. They could do things with technology that seemed like magic to us. They could change matter at the smallest level. They could reshape entire planets. They could even change space and time itself. Jake stood very still and listened. His military training kept him focused even though his mind was racing with questions. "We tried to take their technology by force," the queen continued. Her voice was bitter now. "We saw their power, and we wanted it. We attacked them. We tried to conquer them, but the Architects were not warriors. They did not know how to fight. They were peaceful people. Too peaceful, maybe. Instead of fighting back, They just left. They took all their technology and disappeared into deep space. They left behind only ruins and empty cities. We never found them again. What does this have to do with me? Jake asked. The Queen leaned forward, her glowing eyes fixed on him with an intensity that made his skin prickle. Because you carry their genetic signature, Jake Morrison? The architects looked like your species in many ways. They were humanoid. When I looked at you, I saw the markers we were trained to recognize. The bone structure, the proportions of your face, the underlying genetic pattern. Even after thousands of years of mixing with other species, those patterns cannot be completely hidden. You are a descendant of the architects. Jake felt like the floor had disappeared under his feet. That is impossible. Humans evolved on Earth. We have fossils. We know our history. We came from apes, not from some ancient alien species. Do you really know your history? The Queen tilted her head. Or do you only know what you were able to discover? Think about it. Human. Your species appeared very quickly compared to normal evolution. You have unusual abilities for problem-solving and engineering. You can visualize complex systems in ways that most species cannot. These are gifts from the architects. Even if that were true, Jake said slowly. It was 60,000 years ago. Why does it matter now? It matters because the Valdran Empire has spent 60,000 years searching for the architects. We have conquered hundreds of species. We have taken their knowledge and their technology, but none of it has brought us closer to understanding the architects. None of it has given us their power. And now, after all this time, we find them, hiding on a small planet we almost destroyed without a second thought. The full meaning of her words hit Jake like a punch to the stomach. Earth is not just a vassal state to you. It is a prize. Yes. The Queen stood up again. Her full height seemed even more impressive now. And you, Jake Morrison, are the key to everything. You are proof that the architects survived. If I tell my empire about this, they will take over Earth completely. Your people will become test subjects. Scientists will study you. They will try to unlock the secrets in your genes. Many humans will die. Many more will suffer. But the Valdran Empire will gain power beyond anything we have ever known. Jake's mind went into overdrive. He was alone with this alien queen. She had just discovered that humans might be the descendants of the most advanced species in the galaxy. If she told anyone, Earth was finished. Not destroyed, but something worse. Humanity would become laboratory animals. You are going to tell them, are you not? Jake said quietly. Your warriors, your council, the whole empire. The Queen was silent for a long time. She looked at the crystal walls with their moving lights. Finally, she spoke. That is what I should do. That is my duty as Queen. The knowledge could make my people more powerful than we ever dreamed. With access to architect genetics, we could finally unlock the secrets we have been searching for. But I remember the old stories. My ancestors who fought the architects left records. They wrote about what they did, and they were not proud. They spoke of a peaceful people who offered friendship and got treachery in return. But they chose mercy instead. They simply left. No revenge. No punishment. That kind of wisdom is very rare in the universe. The Queen touched one of the crystal walls. It lit up and projected images into the air. Jake saw ruins on dead planets. Massive buildings that seemed to ignore the laws of physics. Machines whose purpose he could not begin to guess. These are all that remain of the architects, the Queen said. Empty cities on abandoned worlds. Technology so advanced we cannot even turn it on, let alone understand how it works. For 60,000 years, we have found nothing but these ruins. Until today. Until you. So what happens now? Jake asked. He tried to keep his voice steady. The Queen turned back to him. For the first time, Jake saw something almost human in her face. Doubt. Uncertainty. maybe even hope. I have a choice to make. Jake Morrison. I can do my duty. I can tell my empire what you are. Earth will be taken over. Your people will be studied and tested. Some will be dissected. The suffering will be terrible. But my people will gain knowledge and power. Or I can do what the architects would have done. I can choose mercy. I can keep your secret. I can release Earth from its vassal status. I can let your species grow naturally, the way the architects clearly intended when they hid themselves on your world. Hope flared in Jake's chest, but he forced himself to think clearly. Because I am tired, Jake Morrison. The admission seemed to surprise even the Queen herself. I have ruled for 300 of your years. I have overseen the conquest of 17 different species. I have watched my people become what we were always becoming, an empire that only knows how to take and destroy. We have no higher purpose. But the architects were different. They built beautiful things. They created. They made the universe better. What do? We just take from others. She moved closer to Jake again. This time, he did not see a threat. He saw a ruler who carried a burden too heavy to share. If I give you this mercy, I need something from you in return. What do you need? Proof. I need proof that the architects were right. Proof that mercy and creation are not weaknesses. Proof that your people, if given freedom, will become something worthy of their heritage. Something better than another warlike empire. How long do we have? Jake asked. 100 of your years. In that time, humanity must prove itself. Not through military strength or conquest, but through what you build, what you create, how you treat other species you meet. If, at the end of 100 years, humanity has become just another aggressive empire like so many others, I will reveal your secret. The full weight of the Valdran Empire will fall on Earth. Nothing will survive. But if you prove that the architect's vision was right, I will take the knowledge to my grave. Your species will be free. Jake thought about his sister Kate, her children, all the billions of people on Earth who had no idea their future was being decided right now. That is one hell of a test. No. 1C. No plays. No plays. The architects believed in potential. The Queen said. They believed that species could grow into something better. Let us see if they were right to hide among your ancestors. She held out one of her 4 hands. It was an oddly human gesture. Jake looked at the hand for a moment. Then he reached out and shook it. Her skin was warm and felt like soft leather. I accept, Jake said. On behalf of humanity, I accept your challenge. Then go back to your people, Jake Morrison. Tell your ambassador that I found your service good. Tell them that Earth's tribute is being reduced. Tell them the Valdran Empire wants peace with humanity. Then go home and build something your ancestors would be proud of. What will you tell your people? They saw how you reacted to me. I will tell them I saw something that reminded me of old legends. That is true enough. They will wonder about it, but they will not know the real reason. Your secret is safe, as long as humanity keeps its part of the bargain. Jake nodded. The weight of what had just happened settled on his shoulders like a physical thing. He had volunteered to save his sister from being tribute. Instead, he had become responsible for the fate of every human alive, and every human not yet born. One more thing, the Queen said, as Jake turned toward the doors. If humanity fails, if your people become what we fear, I will not be able to protect you. The full power of the Valdran Empire will destroy Earth completely. The architect's bloodline will end. This time, forever. Do you understand? I understand, Jake said. We will not fail. We cannot afford to fail. Then, may the wisdom of your ancestors guide you. You will need every bit of it. Jake walked toward the massive doors. They opened for him automatically. As he stepped through, he looked back one last time. The Queen sat on her throne, watching him leave. In that moment, they were not human and alien. They were two people who had just made a deal that would change the course of history. The journey back to Earth took 3 weeks, just like the trip out. But for Jake Morrison, every single day felt like a year. He sat alone in his quarters on the diplomatic shuttle and stared at the metal walls. His mind kept going over what had happened in that throne room, the revelation about the architects, the test the Queen had given him, the weight of responsibility for every human life. Ambassador Helen Carter had questioned him the moment he walked out of the throne room. Her eyes were sharp with suspicion. "Jake, I saw her reaction when she first looked at you. That was not satisfaction. That was shock, maybe even fear. What really happened in there?" Jake had stuck to the story the Queen had prepared. "She saw something unexpected, ma'am. But she decided it was good. She is pleased with Earth. That is all I can tell you." Carter had pushed harder. She was not stupid. She knew something important had happened. But Jake would not budge. How could he explain the truth? How could he tell anyone that humanity was not just another species, but the hidden remains of the most advanced civilization the galaxy had ever seen? How could he explain that Earth's survival depended on proving something to an alien queen over the next century? He could not tell anyone. Not Carter. Not his commanding officers. Not even his family. The secret had to stay buried. When the shuttle finally entered Earth's atmosphere and came down toward the landing facility in Geneva, Jake felt relief mixed with fear. Relief to be home. Fear about what came next. He had to figure out how to guide humanity toward the right path without explaining why. He had to somehow make sure Earth built a future based on creation instead of destruction. And he had to do it all while keeping the biggest secret in human history. His sister Kate was waiting at the arrival gate. Her 2 kids, Lily and Ben, bounced up and down with excitement beside her. When Kate saw Jake walk through the door, her face broke into tears. She ran to him and threw her arms around him, holding him so tight he could barely breathe. "You are okay," she sobbed into his shoulder. "You are really okay. When I heard you volunteered instead of me, I thought I would never see you again. I thought they would kill you or keep you forever." Jake hugged her back. He breathed in the smell of her shampoo, the solid warmth of family. For a moment, he let himself feel safe. Her husband Danny came up more slowly. He extended his hand to shake. "Thank you for what you did. We owe you everything, Jake. Everything." "You do not owe me anything," Jake said, gripping Danny's hand firmly. "Family protects family. That is what we do." The kids grabbed at Jake's uniform with sticky fingers. "Uncle Jake, did you see the aliens? Were they big? Were they scary? Did you have to fight them?" Jake forced himself to laugh. He tried to sound normal. "I saw them, yeah. They were very tall. And no fighting. Mostly just standing around looking official while people talked." Over the next few days, Jake was questioned by everyone. Earth Defense Forces, Command, the civilian government, intelligence agencies from 6 different countries. Each time, he told the same story. The Valdrin Queen had been impressed by him. She had decided Earth was worth treating better. The tribute requirements were being reduced significantly. It was a diplomatic victory for humanity. Most people believed him. They were happy with the news. But some people were not convinced. General Patricia Hayes, Jake's commanding officer, called him into her office a week after his return. She was a hard woman who had risen through the ranks by being smarter and tougher than everyone around her. She did not miss much. "I have known you for 5 years, Morrison," she said. She leaned back in her chair and studied him. "I have seen you in combat. I have seen you make decisions under fire that saved lives. I have never, not once, seen you lie to me. Until now." Jake kept his face blank. "Ma'am, I do not know what you mean." "Yes, you do. Something happened in that throne room. Something big enough to change everything. You are protecting someone or something by keeping it secret. My question is this: are you protecting Earth or betraying it? Protecting it, Jake said immediately. He met her eyes without flinching. Ma'am, I swear on everything I am, everything I have done, has been to protect Earth and its people. That will never change. Hayes watched him for a long moment. Then she gave a slow nod. I believe you, Morrison, but if that ever changes, if you ever think Earth is in danger because of what you know, you come directly to me. That is an order. Understood? Understood, ma'am. That night, Jake could not sleep. He stood on the balcony of his apartment and looked out at the lights of Denver spread below him. Somewhere up there, beyond the stars he could see, the Valdrin Queen sat on her throne keeping humanity's secret. And somewhere in Earth's distant past, the architects had made the choice to hide themselves. They had mixed their genes with primitive humans until their descendants forgot what they had been. Why would they do that? Why would the most advanced species in the galaxy choose to become ordinary? Why hide instead of fight? Why show mercy to enemies instead of destroying them? Jake thought about what the Queen had said. The architects believed in creation, not destruction. In building, not conquering. Maybe they had seen something in early humanity's potential, something worth preserving even if it meant giving up their own civilization. Or maybe they had just been running, looking for a place to hide where no one would think to look. Either way, humanity now had 100 years to prove the architects had made the right choice. 100 years to become something better than just another species fighting for territory and resources. 100 years to show that mercy and wisdom had not died with the architects. Jake's phone buzzed in his pocket. He pulled it out and saw a message from an unknown number. His heart started racing. He opened it and read, "Remember your promise, Jake Morrison. 100 years. Make them count. A friend among the stars." Jake immediately deleted the message. Then he looked back up at the night sky. The stars looked cold and distant. 100 years seemed like forever. It also seemed like no time at all. "We will make it count," Jake whispered to the darkness. "I swear we will." The next morning, Jake requested a meeting with the director of Earth's space program. He had decided on his approach. He could not tell people the truth, but he could guide them. He could push humanity in the right direction. "I want to start a new institute," Jake told Director Carlos Ruiz. "An organization focused on peaceful development in space. Not military bases or resource extraction. Real development. Science, art, culture, building things that last." Ruiz frowned. "That is not very practical, Lieutenant. We need resources. We need defenses. The galaxy is dangerous." "I know it is dangerous," Jake said. "I just came back from the most dangerous place any human has been. But I learned something there. The species that survive are not the most aggressive. They are the ones that build something worth preserving. The ones that create instead of just taking. That is very idealistic, maybe. But the Valdrin Queen gave us better terms because she saw something in humanity she liked. If we want to keep those better terms, we need to show her she was right. We need to be builders, not destroyers." Ruiz studied him carefully. "This is about more than just keeping the Valdrin happy. Is it not? This is personal for you." "Yes," Jake admitted. "It is very personal. Will you help me?" After a long pause, Ruiz nodded. "I will bring it to the council. I cannot promise anything, but I will try." That was the beginning. Over the next few months, Jake used his newfound status as the human who impressed the alien queen to gather support. He talked to politicians, scientists, artists, and business leaders. He painted a vision of humanity as a species that built beautiful things. A species that cooperated instead of conquered. A species that made the universe better instead of worse. Some people thought he was naive. Some thought he was crazy. But slowly, Others started to listen. People who were tired of humanity's constant conflicts. People who wanted to see something better. People who believed in potential. 2 years after returning from the Valdrin homeworld, Jake watched as the Institute for Interstellar Development held its first official meeting. It was a small group, just 30 people sitting in a conference room in New York. But it was a start. "We are here to build humanity's future," Jake told them. "Not through weapons or conquest, but through creation. Through cooperation. Through making things that last. It will not be easy. Many people will think we are wasting time and resources. But this is the most important work any of us will ever do. Because what we build now will determine what humanity becomes." A young engineer named Lisa Park raised her hand. "What if we fail? What if humanity goes down the aggressive path anyway? I mean, any." Jake thought about the Valdrin Queen's warning. The full weight of the Valdrin Empire falling on Earth, nothing surviving. Then we will have failed not just ourselves, but everyone who came before us. Everyone who believed we could be better. We cannot let that happen. He did not tell them about the architects. He did not tell them about the test. But he poured all his passion and fear into his words, and somehow, they understood that this mattered more than anything else ever had. 20 years had passed since Jake Morrison returned from the Valdrin homeworld. He sat in a conference room at the Institute for Interstellar Development, looking at faces he had carefully brought together over 2 decades. These were engineers, scientists, artists, philosophers, and leaders. None of them knew the full truth about why the Institute existed, but all of them believed in the same dream: making Earth a force for creation in the galaxy instead of destruction. "The Centauri project is ready," said Dr. Lisa Park, who had become the Institute's chief engineer. "We will have a self-sustaining colony on Alpha Centauri within 5 years. No military bases, no strip mining, just a community focused on research and peaceful development. The cultural exchange program with the Krell is going better than expected," added Marcus Cole, who handled diplomatic relations. "They love human art and music. We are learning their biotechnology in return. Real sharing of knowledge, not exploitation." Jake nodded, feeling something close to pride. The Institute had been his life's work since coming home. He had used his reputation as the human who impressed the alien queen to gather money and support. He always pushed the same message. Humanity's future was not in conquest, but in cooperation and creation. It had not been easy. There were groups on Earth that wanted to expand aggressively. They wanted to use the reduced Valdrin oversight to build a military that could challenge other species. The old human desire for territory and resources ran deep. Jake had fought those groups at every chance. He built alliances with people who believed in something better. He made arguments. He showed alternatives. "When do we make contact with the Valdrin again?" asked Claire Rodriguez, who directed alien relations for the Institute. 80 years from now, give or take," Jake said. "We have time, but not as much as you might think. Everything we build now sets the pattern for what humanity becomes over the next few generations." His communicator buzzed. It was a private channel with heavy encryption. Jake felt his pulse speed up. He excused himself from the meeting and stepped out into the hallway. He had not heard from anyone connected to the Valdrin in 20 years. Sometimes he wondered if the Queen was watching humanity's progress. Sometimes he wondered if she had changed her mind about giving them a chance. He accepted the call. A hologram appeared in front of him. It was not the Queen, but another Valdrin he had never seen before. She was younger, judging by the lighter colors of her skin. "Jake Morrison," the Valdrin said in English. "I am Commander Kira. I serve in the Valdrin Diplomatic Corps. I bring a message from the Queen. I am listening. Her radiance wants you to know that she is watching. She sees what you are building. The colony at Centauri. The cultural exchanges. The focus on creation instead of exploitation. She is pleased with your progress." Jake felt like a huge weight had lifted off his chest. He had not realized how much tension he had been carrying. Thank you for telling me that. There is more. The Queen wishes to establish formal relations between the Valdran Empire and your Institute for Interstellar Development. Not with Earth's government, but with your organization specifically. She sees in you the principles she hoped to find in humanity. That is a big step. Why now? Commander Kira's expression became serious. Because others in the Empire are starting to notice Earth's unusual development pattern. There are questions, suspicions about why Earth is being treated favorably. The Queen believes a formal relationship will give her a reason to explain her interest. It will provide cover. Tell her we accept, and tell her something else. Tell her thank you. She knows, Jake Morrison. She knows. The hologram faded. Jake stood alone in the quiet hallway. His mind was working fast. The Valdran Queen was still keeping their secret, still giving humanity the chance she had promised. But the clock was ticking, and there were forces in the Empire that were becoming curious about Earth. 40 more years passed. Jake Morrison was an old man now. His hair had turned completely white. His body was bent and slow, but his mind was still sharp, and his vision had never changed. The Institute for Interstellar Development had become the model for how humanity expanded into space. Earth now had colonies on 15 different worlds. Each colony focused on living in balance with the local environment and cooperating with neighboring species. Human art, music, and philosophy were traded throughout the nearby star systems. Humanity had gained a reputation as builders and creators instead of conquerors. But there were problems. A political movement called Terra First had gained power in some Earth nations. They preached that humans were superior to other species. They wanted military expansion. They called the Institute's approach weak and wasteful. They wanted Earth to claim its rightful place as a dominant power in the galaxy. Jake watched these developments with deep concern. The test period was approaching. In another 40 years, the Valdran Queen would make her final judgment. Would humanity prove itself worthy of its architect heritage? Or would it become just another aggressive empire that needed to be stopped? Jake knew he would not live to see the end. He was 86 years old. His doctors told him he had maybe 5 more years at best. So, he decided to leave a message. Something for the people who would carry the mission forward after he was gone. He recorded it in his apartment, sitting in front of a camera. His grandniece Sophie was there to help with the technical parts. She had joined the Institute 10 years ago and showed real promise as a leader. "My name is Jake Morrison," he said to the camera. His voice was rough with age but still strong. 60 years ago, I learned something about humanity that I can never fully share. I made a promise that I have kept my entire life. But I can tell you this much. We are being tested. Every choice we make, every colony we build, every relationship we form with other species, all of it is being judged. He paused to gather his strength. The judgment is not based on our weapons or our military strength. It is based on our wisdom, our creativity, our ability to build instead of destroy, our choice to offer cooperation instead of conquest. Jake looked directly at the camera, speaking to people who would watch this after he was dead. I will not live to see the end of this test, but you will. And when the time comes, when the final judgment is made, I pray that you will have built something worthy. Not for me, not even for Earth, but for all the potential that exists in every human being. The potential passed down from those who came before us. Jake Morrison died 3 years later on a spring morning in Colorado. He was surrounded by family when he passed. His funeral was attended by hundreds of people. Humans and aliens stood side by side to honor him. The Valdran sent a representative who stood silently at the back of the ceremony. But those who did understood it was a gesture of deep respect. 20 years after Jake's death, the 100-year mark approached. Sophie Morrison, now 45 years old, had become the director of the Institute for Interstellar Development. She had taken her granduncle's vision and expanded it. Under her leadership, humanity had formed partnerships with 12 different species. They had built research stations that benefited everyone. They had shared technology freely instead of hoarding it. They had proven that cooperation created better outcomes than competition. But the Terra First movement had also grown. They controlled several governments on Earth and 3 colony worlds. They were building weapons and talking about expansion by force. The situation was balanced on a knife's edge. Sophie received a message one morning. It came through secure Valdrin channels. The message was simple. It is time. Come to the home world. Well, 8 HFY 11. Well, HFY. Well drented, end quote. 10 HFY. Sophie gathered a delegation. She brought humans from the Institute. She also brought representatives from the Krell, the Fenari, and 3 other species that humanity had partnered with over the years. She wanted to show what humanity had built through cooperation. The journey to the Valdrin homeworld took 3 weeks. Sophie spent the time preparing. She reviewed documentation of every colony Earth had established, every cultural exchange program, every technology sharing agreement, every treaty that prioritized peace over domination. She gathered testimonials from alien species about their experiences with humanity. When they arrived and entered the throne room, Sophie saw the same floating platform her granduncle had described, the same crystal walls pulsing with light. And on the throne sat the Valdrin Queen. She looked older than the descriptions Sophie had read, but still powerful, still radiating authority. Sophie and her delegation approached the throne and bowed. Then, Sophie began her presentation. She showed everything humanity had accomplished over the past century. The colonies that promoted balance with nature. The cultural exchanges that enriched both humans and aliens. The technologies developed for exploration and creation instead of war. The treaties that prioritized mutual benefit over exploitation. She spoke for 2 hours. When she finished, the throne room was silent. The Queen studied the documentation. She watched recordings. She read testimonials from multiple alien species. The silence stretched on until Sophie thought her heart would break from the tension. Finally, the Queen spoke. Your ancestor made me a promise 100 years ago. He swore that humanity would prove itself worthy of mercy, that it would honor a legacy of creation instead of destruction. Sophie felt her hands trembling. And have we, your radiance? The Queen was quiet for what felt like forever. Then, slowly, she nodded. The Valdrin Queen rose from her throne. The movement made every person in the room tense. Sophie Morrison stood her ground, but her heart was racing. Everything depended on what happened next. The fate of billions of humans. The future of every colony. The survival of the dream. Her granduncle had died protecting. You have done something I did not believe was possible, the Queen said. Her voice echoed through the crystal chamber. You have taken a species with all the normal aggressive instincts and guided it toward something different, something better. You have built where others would have destroyed. You have cooperated where others would have dominated. The architects would be proud of what you have become. Relief flooded through Sophie so powerfully she almost fell to her knees. But the Queen raised one of her 4 hands, and Sophie forced herself to stay focused. However, the Queen continued, you must understand something important. This test never truly ends. Every generation of humanity must make the same choice your granduncle made 100 years ago. To build or to destroy. To cooperate or to conquer. To create or to take. The architect legacy is not a gift you receive once. It is a responsibility you must accept every single day. Can humanity do that? Key. Sophie thought about Jake Morrison. About the message he had left. About the century of work that had brought them to this moment. She thought about all the people who had believed in the vision, who had built colonies focused on balance instead of exploitation, who had formed partnerships instead of hierarchies, who had shared knowledge instead of hoarding it. We can, Sophie said firmly. We will. Not perfectly. We are human. We will make mistakes, but we will keep trying. That is what Jake Morrison taught us. That is what humanity can be when we remember our better nature. The Queen smiled. It looked strange on her alien face, but it was clearly genuine. Then, the secret remains safe. Earth is free from vassal status. Humanity has earned the right to walk among the stars as equals, as the inheritors of the architects. Use that inheritance wisely. Sophie Morrison. We will, Your Radiance. I promise. The Queen gestured to her advisors. Prepare a formal treaty. The Valdran Empire recognizes humanity as a sovereign partner. We will establish embassies, trade agreements, cultural exchanges. But there will be no tribute, no vassalage. Earth stands on its own. Sophie bowed deeply. Thank you, Your Radiance, for giving us this chance, for keeping the secret, for believing we could become something worthy. Thank your granduncle, the Queen said quietly. He is the one who convinced me that mercy could be strength instead of weakness. He changed the course of history with his courage. As Sophie and her delegation left the throne room, she looked back one last time. The Queen sat on her throne, watching them go. In that moment, Sophie understood what her granduncle must have felt a century ago. The weight of responsibility, the fear of failure. But also, the hope that humanity could be something special. The journey back to Earth was filled with celebration. The humans on the shuttle could not stop talking about the treaty, about Earth's new status as a sovereign partner instead of a vassal, about the opportunities this would create. But Sophie sat quietly in her quarters, thinking about what came next. The test had passed, but the Queen was right. The real test would never end. Every generation would face the same choice. Would humanity remember the lessons of the past century? Would they continue building instead of destroying? Would they choose cooperation over conquest? Sophie pulled up the recording of her granduncle's final message. She had watched it hundreds of times over the years, but it always moved her. Jake Morrison's aged face looked out at her from the screen. We are being tested, his recorded voice said. Not just for a century. Forever. The choice to be better is not made once. It is made every single day. When the shuttle landed in Geneva, Sophie was met by crowds. News of the treaty had spread quickly. People were celebrating in the streets. Earth was free. Humanity had proven itself. But Sophie also saw protests in the distance. Terra First supporters holding signs. Angry faces shouting about missed opportunities for expansion and dominance. The battle was not over. It would never be over. But at least now, humanity had the chance to keep fighting for its better nature. Over the next few years, Sophie worked to expand the Institute's reach. She opened new chapters on every major colony world. She established partnerships with more alien species. She created educational programs to teach young humans about the importance of cooperation and creation. And she kept her granduncle's secret, as he had kept it before her. 10 years after the treaty was signed, Sophie received another message through Valdran channels. This one was different. It came with an attached file that was heavily encrypted. Sophie Morrison, the message read. The Queen has decided you should know the full truth. The secret your granduncle carried. The reason for everything. She believes you have earned this knowledge. But be warned. Once you know, you can never unknow. The burden will be yours to carry, as it was his. Sophie's hand hovered over the file. Did she want to know? Jake had carried the secret to his grave without ever telling anyone. Was there a reason for that? Would knowing make things better or worse? After a long moment, she opened the file. She read about the architects, about humanity's true origin, about the genetic legacy carried in every human cell, about the test that had determined Earth's survival. When she finished reading, Sophie sat in silence for a long time. The weight of it was almost too much to bear. Humanity was not just another species that had evolved on a random planet. They were the descendants of the most advanced civilization the galaxy had ever known. The responsibility that came with that knowledge was enormous, but Sophie also felt something else. Pride. Her granduncle had known all of this, and had spent his life guiding humanity toward becoming worthy of it. He had succeeded where most would have failed. Sophie made a decision. She would not share the full truth with everyone. Some secrets needed to be kept, but she would make sure the principles survived. The focus on creation, the commitment to cooperation, the belief that building was better than destroying. She established the Morrison Foundation in honor of her granduncle. Its mission was simple: to support projects that made the universe better, research stations that benefited multiple species, art programs that celebrated cooperation, engineering initiatives that solved problems instead of creating weapons, educational systems that taught wisdom alongside knowledge. 20 more years passed. Sophie was now 65 years old. She had spent half her life carrying forward Jake Morrison's vision. The foundation had grown beyond anything she had imagined. There were chapters in 30 star systems, partnerships with 40 different species, projects that touched millions of lives. But Terra First had also grown. They now controlled a significant portion of Earth's government. They were building a military fleet. They talked openly about human expansion by force. The balance was shifting, and not in a good direction. Sophie called a meeting of the Foundation's leadership. 50 people gathered in the conference room. They represented different species, different worlds, different perspectives, but they all believed in the same core principles. "We are at a crossroads," Sophie told them. "There are forces within humanity that want to abandon everything we have built. They want to return to the old ways: conquest, exploitation, dominance. We cannot let that happen. What can we do?" asked one of the Krell representatives. "We are not a military organization. We do not have weapons. We have something better than weapons," Sophie said. "We have proof that cooperation works. We have results. We have built things that benefit everyone. We need to show people that our way is not just morally better, it is practically better. It creates more prosperity, more security, more opportunity for everyone. And if they do not listen?" asked a human engineer. "Then we keep building anyway. We keep proving it works. Eventually, people will see the difference between what we create and what they destroy. Truth has a way of winning in the long run." Sophie was right. Over the next decade, the evidence became impossible to ignore. The worlds that followed the Foundation's principles prospered. They had better living conditions, stronger economies, happier populations, less conflict. Meanwhile, the Terra First colonies that focused on military expansion and resource exploitation struggled. They had higher crime rates, more social problems, economic instability, internal conflicts. Slowly, public opinion began to shift. More people started questioning whether the aggressive approach was really better. More leaders began adopting the Foundation's principles. The tide was turning. Sophie Morrison died at the age of 82. Her funeral was attended by thousands. Humans and dozens of alien species came to honor her memory. The Valdren sent another representative who stood in silence throughout the ceremony. After she was buried next to her granduncle in Colorado, people found a letter she had left behind. It was addressed to future generations. "My granduncle Jake Morrison made a promise 140 years ago," the letter read. "He promised that humanity would prove itself worthy of mercy, that we would build instead of destroy, that we would create instead of conquer. For 100 years, We kept that promise. But the work is not done. It will never be done. Every generation must make the same choice. Will you be builders or destroyers? Creators or conquerors? The choice is yours. But know this: the universe is watching, and what you choose to build today will determine what humanity becomes tomorrow. The letter was printed in every major publication across human space. It was taught in schools, discussed in governments, debated in public forums. The Morrison legacy became part of human culture. 200 years after Jake Morrison returned from the Valdrin homeworld, humanity had become what he had dreamed of. Not perfect, still flawed, still making mistakes, but fundamentally committed to building a better universe. The Institute for Interstellar Development had become one of the most respected organizations in the galaxy. The Morrison Foundation supported projects on hundreds of worlds, and humanity was known throughout the local sector as a species that could be trusted. A species that kept its word. A species that created instead of destroyed. The Valdrin Queen, now ancient even by Valdrin standards, sent a final message to Earth. It was addressed to no one in particular, just humanity in general. You have honored the architect legacy, the message said. Not just for 1 century, but for 2. You have proven that mercy and wisdom can triumph over aggression and conquest. The secret I have kept for 2 centuries will remain safe. Your origin as descendants of the architects will stay hidden until you decide the time is right to reveal it. But know this: you have earned your place among the stars, not through force or deception, but through the quality of what you have built. The galaxy is better because humanity chose to be builders. Never forget that choice. Never abandon those principles. They are what make you special. The message was archived in the Foundation's records. Most people did not understand its full significance, but those who carried the secret knew what it meant. The test had been passed. The promise had been kept. Humanity was free to build its own future. And somewhere in the vast expanse of space, on worlds yet to be discovered, the ancient ruins of the architects still stood, waiting, watching, silent testimony to a civilization that had chosen wisdom over power, creation over destruction, mercy over revenge. Their descendants had finally learned the same lesson, and the universe was better for it.